before we started, I thought I saw my ex-boyfriend. And I was like, not tonight, Satan. I get paid to speak for a living and get up in front of people. So I usually don't read anything, but you'll see why tonight I feel like I need to. So excuse me if I'm shuffling papers and that sort of thing, and my glasses on and off. But here we go. One Sunday in March of 2013, I was doing my usual Sunday morning thing, sitting on the couch in my pajamas, eating like pancakes, something like that, drinking coffee, watching the Sunday morning news shows, and reading the New York Times. Sunday mornings are sacred for me, not because of religion, but because I'm sure like many of you, it's a time when I can relax and just sort of reflect and breathe and do nothing except maybe watch my dog and count how many times she can go in and out and in and out in just an hour. So this particular Sunday was like that. I was, as I remember it, about to watch my favorite Sunday show called Reliable Sources. It's a show for journalists. I'm a journalist. You know, it's about journalists. I sort of feel like I'm with my people, which I guess is what a lot of people feel on Sunday morning, but anyway. And I was ready for it. But on that Sunday, before the show began, one of those breaking news banners came on with the music and the hoopla, all that, and I was like, okay, which meant that my show wasn't going to start, I was kind of annoyed. Within about a minute, my peaceful Sunday was wrecked because this one hit a little too close to home. There was CNN's Candy Crowley anchoring and Poppy Harlow reporting. A guilty verdict had just come down in the much publicized case of high school football players who had gang raped a 16-year-old girl in Steubenville, Ohio, when she was passed out drunk at a party. The boys had bragged about it, and multiple onlookers had videotaped the attack and posted on social media. I had pretty studiously avoided hearing about this story until Candy and Poppy invaded my living room that Sunday morning. Here's what they said. I actually Googled it so I could read you exactly what they said. Candy Crowley. Actually, I'm going to put on my glasses. Candy Crowley. We want to go now to CNN's Poppy Harlow. She is in Steubenville and has been covering this trial. I cannot imagine, having just watched this on the feed coming in, how emotional that must have been sitting in that courtroom. Poppy Harlow. I've never experienced anything like it, Candy. I was incredibly emotional, incredibly difficult. It was incredibly difficult, even for an outsider like me, to watch what happened as these two young men that had such promising futures, star football players, very good students, literally watched as they believed their life fell apart. One of the young men, when the sentence came down, he collapsed. He collapsed in the arms of his attorney. He said to me, "My life is over. No one is going to want me now." Candy and Poppy went on, lamenting how those boys would have to live with this the rest of their lives. They barely mentioned the girl who those poor boys had raped. So that propelled me off the couch. I tweeted about it, but that wasn't enough. I realized there was something I could do. I had access to a powerful platform, and I could use it. So I wrote an op-ed for the New York Times about when I was a 16-year-old high school student at Central High School here in Memphis. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, only the first part and the ending. It's online, so you can read the rest if you want. But here's the first part, putting on the glasses. Waking Up to the Enduring Memory of Rape by Emily Yellin, March 22nd, 2013, Memphis. This is what I know. When I was 16, after most everybody had left a big alcohol-fueled party in a hotel suite, I passed out drunk. Then a star football player at my Memphis high school picked me up off the floor, carried me to the bed, and raped me. His girlfriend and one other male classmate were also in the room at the time. They did not stop him. That was 3 decades ago. I don't bring it up much, but it still comes up sometimes in my head anyway. Especially when I hear of a highly publicized rape, like the recent one in Steubenville, Ohio. I do my best to block out those news accounts and the cavalier talk and portrayal of rape in movies, on TV, online, and in music. It's not because I've not come to terms with what happened to me, but because I have, slowly and privately. I feel frustrated and marginalized when I see how out of touch and ignorant our culture is about what rape really is and its effects. So it seems easier to try and be unconscious of all that, as I was when the whole thing first happened. But the Steubenville case is so similar to my story that it's been more difficult than usual to ignore the news this time. When the verdict came down, convicting 2 football players of raping an unconscious 16-year-old girl, I realized once again from reports on TV and comments online that most people tend to do what I did for decades, numb ourselves to the effects of rape. We deny its impact, rage if we ever have to confront what it really is, and feel annoyed that it doesn't just go away. It all seems easier than facing rape down. In the long run, though, it isn't. I went on to tell more about what happened to me then and how rape played out in my life over decades. I talked about the guy who did it, my friend's boyfriend, and how I'd seen him and his wife and 2 kids on Facebook. Thankfully, he doesn't still live here, but his brother and sister do. And then I ended the piece this way. I read that one of the witnesses in Steubenville, an 18-year-old teammate, said in court this month that he did not try to stop the attack because he did not realize anything wrong was happening. I didn't know exactly what rape was, he said. I can relate. I imagine that the other children in that room with me that night can too. But it is no longer forgivable not to teach young people, and boys and men in particular, exactly what rape is, and not to drill it into their heads that rape is not okay, ever, even just a little bit. Being unaware of its effects is not a viable excuse anymore for being clueless about rape, especially if you're a policymaker, journalist, entertainer, or athlete, or anyone who has a public platform. The world has to be safe for those who've been raped to talk about it to anyone without shame, guilt, blame, or fear of being branded by it for life. In the same way we can talk about any other violent crime like robbery or burglary, crimes that happen but do not define your whole being. I know now. What happened to me that night was a serious, violent crime. I am totally conscious now. But I also want to know, how long will it take for our society to wake up to confront rape fully, and do whatever we have to do to stop it? The response was overwhelming. It trended on Twitter, Facebook, on the New York Times website. Nick Kristof tweeted it. He put it on his Facebook page, and it had this huge discussion with hundreds of comments and likes. Almost every male colleague that I have ever had at the New York Times and beyond either emailed me or tweeted. But 2 things got to me most. I received nearly 100 private messages from female friends and acquaintances here in Memphis and everywhere I'd lived, telling me that the same thing had happened to them, and they'd never spoken about it much, if ever, even to their parents or husbands or boyfriends or girlfriends. And then there were the emails from strangers living all over the country. Again, like almost 100. Like this one from a college student. Oh, glasses again. Dear Miss Yellin, thank you so much for your article. My mom sent me the link that was on the New York Times website, and I'm so glad she did. I'm 18 years old, and I'm a freshman at the beginning of my first year here, I was raped by a former football player who offered to give me a ride home from a party. I was drinking and shouldn't have trusted a stranger, but I know that regardless of my choices, it's not my fault that I was raped. Your story is really encouraging me to try and take action through the university to get this student expelled for what he did to me. But here in the Deep South, I'm scared. Thank you for showing me, however, that I can talk about what happened to me. Thank you so much. Or there was this one from a sophomore at a very prestigious university, not in the South. This was kind of starting in the middle. She said, I was 15 and I was sexually assaulted. I, like you, didn't know what it was either. I know that this is just a super badly written email and that you've probably got a ton of them coming to you every day. But I just wanted to thank you for writing your article because I have never met someone who dealt with being raped in such a similar way to how I did. So I really want to thank you for writing it. Thank you for sharing your story. It takes serious guts and heart to do so. Anyway, I'm attaching a photo of myself at a protest that I went to called the Slut Walk. It was the first time I'd really admitted what happened to me. It helped me a lot, especially because I got to see the stories of other survivors. Anyway, sorry again for this really rambly email, but thank you so much for your article. It really helped me a lot. And then on the back is a photo, which I'm not going to hold up, but she's in front of the Washington Monument, and she's holding it up joyously smiling, and it says, "Drinking was not my crime, rape was his." Then there was the woman who told me about how a stranger raped her brutally in the bathroom of her workplace. But when she told the HR person that she needed time off because of what happened, she was laid off. Her boss told her that telling the woman the story of the rape was inappropriate and could qualify as sexual harassment because the HR woman found it so upsetting that she had to go home that day. And there was the 75-year-old woman who was raped at age 6. This is just a little bit of what she said. Not until I was in my 50s did I tell my mother, and she questioned my truthfulness and sanity. We never spoke of it again. I also got an email from a man who had decided not to rape a drunk girl at a party when he was a teenager. But for a long time, he thought he had done the wrong thing because our culture told him he was a fool not to take advantage of the girl who was there for his pleasure. That one made me cry. 2 of my male friends helped me a lot as well. At a party the night the story was published, we talked about it. One friend, who's a psychiatrist, said it was fairly simple not to rape someone. You just do all you can to make sure the other person wants to keep going, and if a person doesn't, or even if they seem not to, at any point, you stop. And then the other friend, who's a doctor, gave me a metaphor that helped me so much. He talked about how everyone has a hand, and we can all use this hand to show love. You can hold hands, you can caress a person. There are all sorts of things you can do with a hand, which I don't really need to tell you about, to express love. But we can also use our hands to hurt people. When we do that, it's called violence, not love. Well, he said, the same is true about a penis. It can be used to express love. That's called sex. It can also be used for violence. That is not sex. That is violence. Rape is not sex. It is violence. A few days later, bolstered by those responses, I was ready when I ended up speaking to a woman in Pittsburgh who wanted me to appear on a college radio show she moderated. She was a mother of a student. I didn't really understand how it worked, but she kept talking. And she said what would happen is it was an hour-long show. They would call me. I'd talk for 10 minutes about myself. Then I'd hang up, and the next 50 minutes they'd talk about me, but I wouldn't be able to hear it. And I got a bad feeling. I told her that I would not hang up, that if you wanted me to talk about it and you were talking about me, I would stay on the phone. And she agreed, reluctantly. Then she said there were a few more things that were pretty insensitive, and I started to think I didn't want to do the show. And then she said this. She said she wanted me to give female students tips about how to avoid rape. Well, that set me off. Flashbacks of Poppy and candy. I mean, it's pretty simple. Writing this op-ed and my sweet doctor friends helped me see it yet again. Rape is not really about women, or to be less binary, people who've been raped. It's about men or people who rape. So I'll end tonight by sharing what I said to her next, but I just want to warn you that it's not very measured or politically sensitive, but I responded. She asked me what tips I gave for women, girls. I think I just took out decades of crap from all of this on her, bless her heart. I was so in the moment that I didn't even know what I was going to say until it came out. I said, you want to know what my advice is for young women? Get drunk, pass out, wear whatever you want, wherever you want, whenever you want, or wear nothing at all. Dance down the street naked if you want. Sleep with as many people as you want. Have as much sex as you want, wherever and whenever you want. You can sleep with men, women, both, all of them, together. And don't ever expect to be raped. And you know what my advice is to young men, I told her? She said, what? I said, don't rape. Needless to say, I didn't end up appearing on her radio show. But I like to think that I helped her audience anyway. Thank you.